Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming to the press conference with State Secretary Jennifer Morgan. She will give a brief statement and then there's a chance for questions. You can just raise your hand and then I'll give you the mic for the question. I'm Manuel, I am with her press team. All right.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming this evening. Thought it would be a good idea on day one of this COP, which is a very important COP, to spend some time outlining what Germany and the European Union is looking for at this meeting. We know, and I am feeling here already, that despite geopolitical tensions, the world can and does come together to secure a livable future for current and future generations. Here, in the next 2 weeks, we will work to show progress on the transition away from fossil fuels in a just, equitable manner. I can say a little bit more specifically on what that looks like. And also, of course, we want to come together to strengthen adaptation, and also that we can come together to adopt a modern, more effective approach to international climate finance. We know that these will not be easy negotiations, perhaps the most challenging since Paris, but we also know that the climate crisis is one of the greatest security challenges of our time. We are seeing the impacts hitting people's lives every single day, whether it be the floods in Spain or in other countries like the United States, the droughts that are plaguing Southern Africa. I think we can't understate the urgency that we are facing. But also I think we see how the transformation to climate neutral and climate resilient economies offers enormous opportunities for securing prosperity and sustainable development worldwide. In Germany, we are moving ahead with our own energy transition. We're at about 60% renewable energy now in our grid. We recently closed 16 coal-fired power plants, and we've moved a further 10 into reserve capacity. And we have a full phase out of nuclear energy. We still have the third most stable grid in the world. And I think we clearly are looking here in Baku to have an ambitious outcome on mitigation, to see how countries will implement the conclusions from last year, whether that be a phase out of global unabated coal in line with 1.5 degrees and closing the book on new coal, decisions around having grids and storage for renewable energy, as just two examples in decision text, along with a range of different initiatives that can occur. The clarity that we see is that the economy is moving around the world. The IEA recently found that 85% of all power plants, new power plants, are from renewable energy, double the investment in renewables as in fossil fuels. Of course, we're also here to be talking about finance, because we know to succeed in the global transition, we need significantly more finance, public and private, to flow into climate action, especially in developing countries. We need to agree a new approach to climate finance, one that really responds to these investment needs and the economic realities of today, including those countries who are able to do so contributing to international climate finance. Germany stands by its climate finance commitments, and Germany and the EU will remain leading contributors to international climate finance. We are proud to have provided 5.7 billion euros in 2023 and aim to provide 6 billion in 2025. We have also mobilized 4.2 billion euros in 23, bringing the German contribution to the 100 billion goal to 9.9 billion euros in 2023. We also, though, see in the context of this new approach to international climate finance, a need for a global investment goal so that we can be moving to shift investment into developing countries. We see a real need to be sending signals to the international financial institutions that we need more reforms, that we need further debt relief, and we've stated very clearly that the EU, Germany and the EU are ready to, of course, we've agreed already to provide $100 billion in the future as a floor, and would be willing to do more if other countries that are able to do so chip in. We're just getting going here. Obviously, there are many questions regarding elections, the US election that has just taken place. And I think it's quite clear that the global climate crisis and the global race for clean industries, well, it will continue, irrespective of elections. Germany and the European Union see the transition to a climate neutral economy as a cornerstone of our future competitiveness. Heads of state reaffirmed that last week in Budapest, and we will continue to implement our climate laws and work with international partners on the swift and full implementation of the Paris Agreement. And with that, happy to take questions. Some water, great.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Frédéric Simon from Carbon Pulse. I have a question about Article 6. Apparently there's an agreement on Article 6 which is about to be announced. Can you explain what was your negotiating position as Germany and as the European Union? What are the achievements that you made in defending that position and how you coordinated that? Thank you.
Thanks. I'm just pulling out my Article 6 sheet because I think on Article 6, we've certainly been working hard to have integrity in Article 6. Thank you. So that there's integrity in the carbon market, obviously, and avoiding greenwash. We have seen a draft decision on taking note of the standards for methodologies as well as removals by the Supervisory Board for the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism. Article 6.4, it's been published. And the EU, I think, feels that these standards are ready for adoption, although not perfect, and that further negotiations are highly unlikely to lead to an improvement. Some parties, though, have voiced concerns, so we have to see whether adoption in a plenary will be possible later tonight or not. We have been informed that the presidency plans a contact group for giving further guidance to the supervisory body under the CMA. And this, I think, we can ensure that there's sufficient oversight over the supervisory body and that we can guide its further work, which is very important. These mechanisms are critical. We're very focused here to having decisions, but we just need to make sure that the integrity is in place and that greenwashing is not possible as much as possible.
Hi, Jennifer. John Inger from Bloomberg News. How do you evaluate the health of the Paris Agreement given Trump's victory and the fact that this year is likely to be the first that surpasses the 1.5 degree goal? And just following up on that, I mean, do you worry that other countries could follow the US out the door of the Paris Agreement, potentially the UNFCCC, or even use the exit to act as a further break on ambition? And if you could tie that into the current the current agenda fight on the UAE dialogue, that'd be great. Thanks.
So I think when we look at the Paris Agreement, and the Executive Secretary said it this morning, before Paris we were on path for, he said, a 5 degree Celsius rise. We're now on path for a 2.6 to 3.1 rise, which is still far too high. But I think when you look and see how all countries really have put forward their nationally determined contributions, how I can speak for the European Union at least, and I think major economies have really taken significant action to reduce emissions. The EU last year, 8% emission reductions. We've seen laws being put in place around the world to reduce emissions, to build out renewable energy. And as I said, it's really quite striking how fast the takeoff of particularly solar, but also wind is, to the point where I think that the geopolitics of energy is shifting and has shifted significantly. countries that never before dreamt that they would be providers of energy around the world are now working with Germany and other countries to build out their renewable resources, their critical mineral resources. And I think that is a fundamental difference, because now it's in the national economic interest of many countries due to the affordable and fast implementation of renewables to go in that direction, which is why last year we worked so hard to have that renewables tripling by 2030, because that's a key time period. I think we've also seen that we've been working together over the past to set up and have evidence-based, solid discussion on the future framework for climate finance. And now it's time for us to make some decisions. And unfortunately, I think we have seen an incredible, as I was saying, increase of climate crises, and therefore we have a loss and damage fund, which was agreed 2 years ago, put in place, and this year we're moving. We have already negotiated that. So I think the health of the Paris Agreement is quite good. I think you have here a multilateral forum where countries work together to find solutions, despite geopolitical tensions, despite elections, and have been through elections in the past and have continued to move forward. And I think now we're seeing even more with the costs and the devastation of the impacts themselves, how the urgency is much more present, and the calculation of those costs of inaction moving into national discussions about decisions then around a decarbonization of economy. I think that's quite key. All of my conversations are about how we move forward together in implementing the Paris Agreement. On the agenda, I think that I haven't been in touch with my team in the last hour. I think that we'll find solutions on the agenda fight.
Hi, Alec Loon from Scientific American. There was a lot of talk coming into this COP about how, with the U.S. kind of pulling back the EU and China, this was a challenge or an opportunity for the EU and China to step forward and be the real drivers of international climate policy. Have we seen that happening? Is the EU stepping up? Is China stepping up? Are there concrete examples of that yet?
Well, I think the EU and China, I can speak for Germany inside of the EU. I can observe the Chinese situation. I think the EU has been stepping up. I think, you're seeing it in how we're implementing the Fit for 55, how President von der Leyen is putting together a commission that is strong on climate. We saw the heads of state last week actually state that for competitiveness, being the first continent to move towards a climate neutral economy is in the economic and competitiveness interests of the European Union. That is a signal that came out at the end of last week. I think the EU and China have a long history of cooperation around issues on climate, not only cooperation, also differences, of course. Germany, we have a transformation dialogue with China. I was there last summer with our Vice Chancellor to move forward on that, on how to cooperate on, for example, grid flexibility to be able to absorb more renewables in your grid. So I expect those to go forward, I think, more than ever, perhaps, but I think there's a long history there. So I don't think that's a change of course. I think that's continuing to implement, where you have a European Union very serious about this economic plan. You have a China that, of course, is absolutely essential for keeping 1.5 degrees within sight. What it decides to do on its national climate plan, its NDC, will be decisive. Moving, of course, into rapid deployment of renewable energy, but also needing to curb coal.
Okay, so
Well, we have over 40 energy and climate partnerships through our climate foreign policy. And I can just say that all these countries want to work and learn from the German experience of what we've learned over the years. What's the policy framework? How do you get investment in? We're working on a green guarantee group to bring down the cost of capital. I don't see any of that changing.
Okay, looking at the time, we will take two questions at a time, and then hopefully we have a time for a third one.
Hey, Brad Plumer with the New York Times. Thanks for doing this. Can I just ask about the climate finance? Sort of, how does another U.S. election question? Apologies, but how's the U.S. pulling out? Expected to pull out next year affect that? I mean, there's a lot of talk about trying to convince other countries that haven't traditionally provided climate finance to step up, and now you have the world's wealthiest country, most likely, saying we're not going to give another cent of climate aid for the next 4 years. How does that make it harder? What can be done to sort of get around that? What are you trying to tell other people as you try to convince people to step up?
Yep.
I like this question even less. I wonder, could I ask, given the fate of the Schultz coalition government, does that change the way that you engage on the negotiations over the finance goal?
I'll start with that one because it's quick. We have a full mandate here for our government, and we'll continue to implement. As I said, we stand by the commitments that we have made around climate finance, around climate action. Our climate laws, our climate bills remain, and I have a full mandate from the Chancellor here to implement that. No changes. And obviously work within Team Europe. So I think the climate finance, maybe just to step back 1 second and then go into more depth. So what we're negotiating here is a collective goal from 2026 to most likely to 2035. And the question is also within, okay, there's that core of the public and mobilized private finance, but then also all the other layers that are there from getting the international finance institutions to move to debt relief. And also, I think what could come in even more actively now is innovative sources of finance. So we know that we will need more finance. What are the innovative sources that could come in, right? We have proposals from Prime Minister Motley from Barbados for many different approaches. We have proposals from Brazil. We have, and so I think here, and the European Union has been very supportive of really taking a look at those innovative sources to see, okay, which ones could play out. So looking at how we can be moving here, getting a real negotiation moving around those innovative finance sources was a priority beforehand. I think it remains that. I think for other countries, I mean, look, the European Union is by far the largest contributor to climate finance. If you bring in other countries, I think you'll see that is the vast majority. Of course, we hope that all countries continue to provide climate finance. It is in our national interest to do so. And we've said that we are ready to go above that 100 billion floor if others are going to chip in. At this moment, I think that the countries that are now out there on the global stage really projecting leadership, with that leadership comes responsibility. That doesn't go away with an election. It stays. It stays that you have countries that China is now a larger historical emitter than the European Union. It has the same GDP as the EU. UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar together have grown very impressively over the last years. So I think the expectation in this moment, and perhaps the pressure will grow even more on those countries to be coming in. We are here, we have a strong negotiating position and are working with all countries to get to solutions.
All right, because looking at the time, one last quick question and quick answer.
Yep, sorry.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Sibi from the Associated Press. Given you're a COP veteran and that the agenda has not even been announced, what does this portend for the rest of the couple of weeks in Baku? Are you feeling a bit disappointed that little progress has been made even on the agenda so far?
I mean,
anything you can tell us on what's happening with?
Sure. I mean, I think the presidency is consulting right now, and I think there are plans coming in later to move forward on that. We've seen this in the past. My experience right now is that countries are really here to negotiate. I felt that at the pre-COP. I felt that today. I felt that at the end of last week. And I think it behooves the presidency to get that agenda adopted and then to allow all of us to get to work. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Welcome to the German Climate Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. Germany. Climate solutions, fast and fair.